Hello everybody, welcome back to another video for the day. Now we're diving back into r/Tales of Neckbeard because everybody likes that good old cringy story time. You know the deal, like the video, strike up a conversation by leaving a comment down below with somebody else who's been watching this stuff, and afterwards consider subscribing and ringing that Taco Bell bell. Thank you. Our first story comes to us from username ScriptChime. 2-year high school experience with a neckbeard. Boring but title, I know. There isn't much interesting to say, but after hearing stories from voices here and yours truly, I realized that this guy qualifies. Originally, I thought we was just an nice guy, but nope. Warning, it's long. A little context, my school organizes homeroom by alphabetical order by last name. The people you have in your homeroom from freshman year are the ones you're stuck with until senior year. This guy was there all 4 years, but I didn't really know him until the very end of sophomore year going into junior year. He was always quiet and reading a book, and typically I was talking or on my phone, and outside of homeroom I never shared a class with him aside from our honors English class where I basically ignored everybody. I do know for sure that he annoyed me in that class. He was always extra. For example, frog hopping to turn off the lights in the room and frog hopping back. Otherwise, outside of that class, I didn't interact with him. I became really aware of him by the end of sophomore year. Someone recorded a video of him dancing and people were cheering him on and laughing. I felt bad for him then, and people in my school are really condescending when you're not their friend. I know personally that people have changed how they speak to me to sound like they're talking to a child. Engaging me with benign questions and laughing at me whenever I tried to engage them. I might sound overly sensitive, but even the girls at that table I was forced to sit with said, "Aw, they're making fun of him." Anyone could see that. The guy himself, I'm not even super sure I can classify as a neckbeard. He was rather clean and put together, pretty short, and oddly stocky with a very weaselly voice. He had bad acne with black glasses, and he did have a neckbeard. He didn't wear a fedora around the school. Even when we had dress down days, he wore a baseball cap typically, but he did wear one to prom and also for a Halloween costume. The reason I doubt if he was a neckbeard or not is because he didn't have the typical neckbeard obsession as far as I know. He was always reading like I said, and as far as I know the only show he cared about was Has-Been Hotel. The thing that makes me believe he is one though is his engagement with messing around in women, his attitude with people, and lack of a basic social awareness or lack of care. I'll go through these one by one. First, his engagement with messing around in women. Like I said, I didn't know him well until junior year, but when I did, the experience was just sad. He frequently fell for girls in the homeroom and would ask them out on movie dates. He was never too inappropriate. He was a nice guy until you questioned him or got him angry, so it was a bit difficult to turn him down. Some girls wouldn't do it at all and would usually find a friend to give him an out. He was never too secretive about his crushes. He would be doing things like leering, getting too close, pushing his way into conversations that clearly did not need him. So usually, if a friend was nearby, they could jump in and ask about a possible boyfriend or girlfriend they had, and he would back off pretty quick. Didn't mean he would stop staring though. One experience I had watching this was with a friend N. She was in the r/Nice Girl Stories post I made. You don't need to go and read it, but if you did, this occurred around the time M and N were flirting. Let me give people's names so I don't lose my mind. Me is me, Cat is friend 1, an object of Neckbeard's affection, Lax is friend 2, not important to the story, but she was a subject of a crush Neckbeard had in junior year, Teddy, friend 3, she isn't important to the story and doesn't do anything, and NB is Neckbeard. Around the time Cat and Teddy were flirting with each other, we would all hang out in my homeroom that I shared with NB, Lax, and Cat. Every time we were down there, without fail, he would inevitably try and interject. He would come to us and stand way too close to Kat while we talked. He was always right behind her, and usually she looked at me asking for help. Lax and I usually teased Teddy and Kat that they were basically dating already, so we would usually talk and joke about that, and that would keep him at bay for a bit. As said previously, he came off as a nice guy. I didn't like him and made my feelings known, but none of them had any first-hand experience with him acting the way he did towards me, so they would still try and be nice. So no one wanted to outright reject him, especially since he hadn't actually said anything yet. Even when he would walk away back to his desk, he would continue to stare at Kat, and it clearly made her uncomfortable, but of course, what would we say aside from stop? Even when a teacher was told and heard it made girls uncomfortable, he just went on a whole spiel of that he might be on the spectrum and to just put up with it. I get the message behind it, but anyone could see why forcing girls to put up with being uncomfortable with zero change or reflection of the guy's part is a dong move. As far as I know, no teacher has ever talked to him him about his leering, so reporting him was ultimately pointless. One moment that stands out is in homeroom. Kat and I love musicals and had gotten attached to Beetlejuice the musical for the time being. One song in particular begins "Say My Name." It's a duet, so occasionally I would put it on and we would sing it together. One time we were doing this, we picked up a third voice. I noticed NB caught on and learned the song to sing Beetlejuice's part. We didn't acknowledge him directly, but me and Kat both cringed and talked about it when we headed to class. Another was during homecoming. NB was there in a full suit and fedora. He seemed to catch our group, but stayed at bay probably because there was about 5 or 6 of us, and there was no way to really reach us without pushing his way into our clock-blocking circle of death. When we dispersed a bit, he started following us and getting really uncomfortably close. I noticed and pointed it out to my friends, and they noticed that he was following us around the room. No matter where we went, he was there and following close behind. Teddy and Kat eventually had to stay attached at the hips for the rest of the dance to keep him off. What finally seemed to get him to stop was a little after Kat and Teddy started dating, Lax and I decided to walk into homeroom early before both of them, and when Neckbeard was in room, to say, "I can't believe Kat and Teddy are dating." That seemed to do the trick, and he stopped bothering Kat. We still catch him staring at her and our group though. He still stared at other girls and it made all of them uncomfortable, one of them being a sophomore. The issue is occasionally people would encourage his more nice gestures, i.e. nominating a girl for homecoming queen, or when he asked girls out on the movie dates, so I think he believes that can excuse his staring and other off-putting behavior. Now, with messing around it isn't as bad. He sometimes reads off-brand kind of things and things like that in public. The only reason I mentioned it is because he was caught at one point single-player campaigning in the men's room loudly while other people were in there. Don't know whose God's green earth thinks that's appropriate, but it happened and it's still disturbing to think about. Next was his attitude towards people and his social awareness. I've already mentioned he calls to attention by doing stupid, obviously attention-grabbing things he knows people will laugh at, but I'm talking about how he treats people, namely people who disagree with him. In junior year, I was in an honors history class and put in a desk cluster with him and one other guy. I didn't have a lot of friends in junior year, so I was always in homeroom, and I think he took that as permission to talk to me all the gosh darn time. I put up with it because I didn't want to hurt his feelings, but frick it, all of it wasn't annoying. He had a one-track mind and would talk obsessively about whatever bright idea or concept or show was on his mind. Usually, when I tried to talk and bring up things I was interested in connection to things he liked, he would brush it off and continue on whatever rant he was on. I gave up talking to him eventually and forced him away by putting my earbuds in when he was distracted and putting music on until he got the hint and went away. One particular instance was when the Charmed reboot was first on. I was behind on it, but when I expressed my love for it, NB got excited and started talking about his theories, of course not letting me get a word in. Eventually, he found out I wasn't fully caught up and got really rude, saying, "So you have no idea what I'm talking about," before rolling his eyes and huffing. If he had let me speak, I could have told him the last episode I was on sooner so he couldn't have wasted his time, but naturally it was my fault, I guess. During class wasn't much better. The teacher was big on group work and the beginning of the year, and the people you worked with was at your desk cluster. The other guy at the table never did anything since he identified me and NB as intelligent enough to handle, I guess. He has always liked this, so basically ignored him, but this was the first time I had worked with NB. This is when he pissed me off. We were learning about colonies, and our task was to make an advertisement. Either A, credit the South, B, discredit the South, C, credit the North, or D, discredit the North. I wanted to discredit the South, one, because it was easier for me personally since the other guy wasn't going to do anything, and because I had a few good ideas for how to do so. NB wanted to discredit the North purely because of the Salem witch trials. No joke, this was his only reason, followed by this sentence that still pisses me off. Also, we should discredit the North because, have you seen us? We're a dumpster fire. No other particular reason for discrediting the North, nope, just that he wanted to go on one of his coveted extended tangents that meant absolutely nothing to the class and only served to really flex on everyone on his personally perceived better intelligence. I tried to explain to him my reasoning and my ideas, but he refused to listen. I finally gave up and let him do whatever because we were running out of time and I was way too out of it to argue with him that early in the morning. I let this happen 2 more times before I gave up and just did my own assignments, leaving NB and other kid to do their their own devices. I didn't care about whether it was a group work or not. It was either I do all of the work or not have my voice valued, and neither are ways I want to endure my limited time on this earth. Another thing our wonderful NB was known for was pushing his way into others' conversations. One notable example was when some guys early in the homeroom were talking about basketball. NB had learned to not talk to me after the multiple occasions where I made it clear I wanted nothing to do with him. This was around the time people thought I was dating him, which I was not having in any capacity. He went into their conversation and said, "You know what, I think the only person who can save America at this point is insert guy's last name here." I'm not sure who that was since I wasn't really big on history and wasn't paying too much attention. All I know for sure is that this was a guy that restored Japan's government after the US bombed them, if I'm correct. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, tell me in the comments and I'll fix it. He said a little more after that, and one of the guys he was talking about remarked, "Yeah, after we bombed them," before returning to what he was originally talking about. NB was disappointed. No one was super impressed with what I guess was an enlightened viewpoint. He had actually been desperately looking for someone to tell this fact to earlier and would bombard people within only a few minutes of them coming into the room. This was a frequent practice of his. He would have a random thought or opinion, force it on people whether they wanted to hear it or not, and they would either be stuck pretending to care but be unable to respond because his facts were either obscure or because it was early in the morning, dismiss him outright, or pretend they didn't hear him. It was one of the saddest things I've ever seen. He never seemed to pick up that people didn't care. He was also really freaking pretentious. He was one of those people that prided themselves on not having a cell phone like it was a freaking achievement, but it only served to make things harder for him. My school isn't big on phones, but some of the teachers are fans of using them for in-class research and other assignments. Of course, whenever my history teacher would assign something that required a phone, he would constantly interrupt the teacher and try to be as loud as he could in proclaiming he didn't have a phone so he couldn't. Obviously, the teacher wasn't going to leave him to not do the assignment, and every time this occurred, the same suggestions were given: pair with someone else or use the teacher computer. Another time, the teacher assigned us to design a book cover. We were asked to do it digitally, and NB was about to start up on the usual "I don't have a computer at home" rant, but before he could, the teacher pointed out the two computer labs we have. A required class in sophomore year is Intro to Graphics Design, and an elective is Advanced Graphic Design. As a result, we have two computer labs with Macs with Photoshop, Flash, and Illustrator already installed with an account that anyone can go to and use with permission. The big issue was that meant that NB and anyone else that was going to use the computers here were at the mercy of the teachers who were in charge of locking and unlocking the room, and even then simply going and talking to the office could be enough to get one of the other administrators to open the door. NB was officially silenced. For now. The day came that the assignment was due. I was already in a really shoddy mood and was not in the mood to deal with NB. When I walked into homeroom, he was stalking around the room angrily, mumbling to himself about something. It was, of course, irritating, and my dumb butt decided to ask him what was wrong with him so he could shut up, since he clearly wanted someone to listen to him. Before I could even speak, he was now near me, stalking the area I was in. What's wrong? The stupid computer lab is not open, so I can't print out my project. It'll be fine. Did you talk to the office? NB rolls eyes and continues stalking around the room. At this point, the teacher was in the room and fully present, and at any point, NB could have explained the issue, but he just continued to barch about. I got pissed when he started complaining that the project was stupid, and in my infinite wisdom said this: "Just because it's difficult for you doesn't mean it's stupid. Leave me alone, I'm not in the darn mood," trying to sound as intimidating as possible. Then stop complaining so loudly and shut the frick up. I stopped engaging him at this point and started talking to Kat that had finally arrived. He eventually got to print out his project. The teacher that ran one of the labs was literally there 15 minutes before the bell, giving him enough time to go, print it, and get it back to the homeroom before any class started, and he shut up after that. That was the last time I talked to him, willingly at least. He did annoying shot like walking up right behind me close enough to be breathing down my neck, and somehow I didn't notice it. When I did, I almost slapped him because he started cracking like a freaking hyena. He was infuriating. I only have to deal with him until May, but I'll update this if he does any more annoying stuff. And you know, I gotta say, with that type of personality in that type of class, it's very likely he'll be doing stuff, kind of a force of habit at this point for him. Our next story comes to us from username Fearless Intelligence. attention. Clarence's Luxury Holiday, or Lazy Prickdom 101. I saw a post today that reminded me of this one, left a TLDR there, but there's so much more to this one. My middle and high school band was blessed by the presence of a neckbeard in the making. We'll call him Clarence because that is the perfect name for a gentle sir of his caliber. Clarence, like myself, was a clarinetist. Not a good one by any means, but he was. We had 5 clarinetists, Clarence and other boy, who played the basic first clarinet parts, and 2 girls and myself who played the much harder, high note laden second clarinet parts. Clarence never showed much interest in clarinets, routinely skipping lessons to play Pokemon on his Game Boy and spending most band rehearsals goofing off or chatting up the flute section. I asked him why he was even in band if he has no interest, and he replied, "To attract a partner of the female persuasion. Women appreciate refined, cultured men such as ourselves." He said this while adjusting his poorly fitting hockey jersey. This kid literally always wore sweatpants and a hockey jersey even in the spring, and they all had stain and or holes somehow. And winking charismatically. One week, we were traveling upstate for a music festival contest type thing, as high school bands often do. We'd be missing Thursday and Friday's school and returning home Saturday evening. Everyone was excited. On the bus, I was sitting near Clarence attempting to complete Thursday and Friday's work so I didn't have to bother with it at the hotel. Clarence kept leaning over to badger me about various subjects. "I heard you caught a shiny Voltorb in Pokemon Silver. Consider trading it for my Hitmonlee? Help a brother out, you selfish prick. If you're just going to do homework, you could at least help your fellow man. How do you do these problems again? And proofread my essay while you're at it. I'm looking forward to the hotel. I'm hoping to have a pleasurable encounter with name of an attractive flute player in a long-term relationship and with considerable disdain for our hero. I can tell she's into me." We arrived at the hotel and ate lunch, after which we had an afternoon practice for the whole band, which Clarence skipped to eat vending machine chips and play his Game Boy in the room. He was rooming with the other first clarinet, and I was with the bass clarinetist. The other 2 second clarinets were in the room between ours. After dinner, we had evening practices for anyone doing solos, duos, and trios, etc., for anyone who wanted extra help before the contest. I worked on my quartet with the other 2 second clarinets and Clarence's favorite flute player. Clarence showed up to this practice, waved off the wind director, who thought he came for extra help, and sat behind the 4 of us whilst seductively giving the girls simpy compliments and asking them to meet him in his room. The director gave him the boot after 10 minutes of this. After evening practice, we all retired. Friday morning, day 1 of the contest proper. I awoke, dressed in a button-down and black slacks as per concert code, met my friends for waffles and cocoa, and returned to my room to practice a song until we had to leave. While doing this, I saw Clarence, decked out in the same food-stained sweatpants and ripped Buffalo Sabres jersey he'd arrived in. They looked slept in and smelt like 10 boys' locker rooms had been emptied into a landfill and pumped through a rusty pipe into someone's unfinished basement. He greeted me warmly as I entered the room. "Greetings, my good man. I regret to inform you that I have not had any success with the females. They will change surely." "That's nice, Clarence. Why are you dressed like that, and why didn't you take a bath? This is a contest." "These are the only clothes I brought." He tugs his jersey collar, expanding one of its many holes. "What the heck, Clarence? And shouldn't you be practicing?" "I left my instrument at home." He holds up a Ziploc containing a stick and a cork grease and a simple reed. "I left my case of clarinet under my bed. This is all I have. I also left my folder that has my lesson book and sheet music at school." The band director was far from thrilled by this news. We left Clarence at the hotel to await judgment and to proceed to the contest. A parent chaperone who was under the weather volunteered to remain in their room, which was across from us, and make sure he wasn't too rowdy. Several hours later, we returned to the hotel. We clarinetists decided to check on Clarence. His room was locked, so the first clarinet had to key us in. We immediately saw several trails of watery paw prints leading to and from the bathroom. I entered the room and was not prepared for the sight that awaited me. Clarence was lounging in a steaming bathtub. The water around his fupa was slightly discolored, and there were chunks of something brown adrift at the bottom. He had a box of room service food balanced on his belly, and a few chip bags floated to his right. Propped up by a towel rack was an issue of Playboy, and those pages under Clarence turned with his feet. His Game Boy rested on a stool and his left hand was manipulating it. His clothes lay in a stinky pile next to several discarded food boxes. I had caught him mid-fap. As evidenced by the position of his hands, he burped in surprise and slid deeper into his swamp, dislodging the chicken he was eating from his fat belly and splashing water around the room. Ew. After Clarence dressed himself, we brought the director in to see the fruits of Clarence's labors. He was kicked off the band then and there and would be forced to attend the second day of contests. When we checked out, the room service charge from Clarence's room was in the area of $110. Band was the only time I saw him. I had all advanced classes, so I have no idea what became of our hero after that weekend. I'm sorry, but that last part almost made me legit sick. I'm not even joking on that. That dude is so lucky he did not get ejected and have to have his parents come pick him up and drive him home right then and there. And with that is going to have to be it with the video. If you would like what you had seen, be sure to like the video, comment down below what you liked about the video, and start up a good discussion with those people watching. And be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications for future uploads. I'll be sure to see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and bye-bye.